Hello, Hockey World. Today is Tuesday, July 13th, 2021.
I'm Jan Levine.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
You didn't get me, Russ. And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. It was a dramatic pause in honor of Eck. Okay, we're going to get right into the hockey talk here because Jan's time is limited. Where are you, Jan?
Vegas.
In Vegas. Okay, I hope you left the checkbook at home.
I'm not a big gambler, so not a problem.
There you go.
Although I should have bet Pete Alonso in the home run derby yesterday.
You should have.
Who cares? I mean, congrats.
What do you mean, who cares?
I didn't watch it. I don't care.
Wait, hold on. The Mancini story was a pretty cool story.
It was a great story.
It was a very cool story.
Yes.
And Alonso's made this event fun again. But anyhow, let's talk hockey.
Yes. Okay. I don't think anybody expected, because there was a message this morning. I think it was Chris Johnston that said that I think the deadline for players waiving their no move clause was 5 p.m. today. So I don't think anybody, and we hadn't had a buyout from Friday when buyouts were starting. But Bill Guerin, I think, whopped us over the head, Russ, because Parise would be one, but both Parise and Suter at the same time, they were signed the same time 9 years ago, and now they're being bought out at the same time today. And Mike Russo from The Athletic gets kudos for breaking the story. But, Russ, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, we knew the term on that contract was bad. It didn't take much back then to know that. But, the hope is you win a cup, you forget about that stuff. They didn't win a cup. Like, that happens. Not everybody wins. Look, Parise was a great player, fast, could really score. In his peak years, he was getting 90 points, close to that. Terrific player. Once his back started to go, that was a real problem. There was nothing wrong with Ryan Suter other than his salary, because he still plays over 20 minutes a game, and this guy still can bring it, not so much offensively, but just defensively, and can still get the puck out of the zone. I think he'll go to Tampa. I think Tampa will knock on his door, and they'll get him at league minimum.
Now, Jan, Parise, I think we heard the rumors last February of 2020. Of him getting traded potentially to the Islanders for Andrew Ladd, and that didn't come to fruition. Now he gets bought out, and I'm sure the Parise to the Islanders rumors at league minimum will pop up. Suter, as Russ said, Suter has been playing. He's still good. I think the buyout has more to do with the fact that they didn't want to lose Matt Dumba in the expansion draft than it did Suter's play or even his salary.
Yeah, so a couple of reasons. So first of all, some stuff I saw is they kind of had to get both of them at once as opposed to doing one or the other. So there seemed to be a match set, first of all. Secondly, it does free up two spaces in terms of retention, which, as you said, allows them to keep Dumba. This year, there is a $10.3 million benefit from it. However, next year, there's $12.7 million in dead cap space. Then the following 2 years is $14.7 million each. So Guerin is clearly looking to, I would say, change the culture there. He probably was looking to free up some room to hopefully re-sign Kirill Kaprizov, which still has to get done. He also has to re-sign Kevin Fiala. The other piece of the puzzle is, what does this do for Matt Zuccarello? Wasn't the Guerin signing a guy who, if they're looking to change around the culture and the age demographic of that team, doesn't really fit with what they have right now, so he could be on the way out. Parise to the Islanders just makes too much sense. I mean, first of all, obviously, JP played for the Islanders, so there's always that connection there. Lamoriello drafted him when he was in New Jersey. There was substantive rumors, and it looked to be all but relatively close to the end line for him going there last year at the deadline. Suter's going to be interesting. So, ironically enough, somebody just posted on Twitter that you trade for Duncan Keith, and the next day Ryan Suter becomes available. Though I don't think Suter was going out to Edmonton necessarily.
No, I don't think so either.
So clearly he's going to go somewhere where he wants to win. So Tampa Bay is going to be a team that clearly is going to have open spots. They got to clear up salary space. He's already getting paid Suter, so salary is not going to be a large impediment in terms of signing him. I mean, one of the things that I may end up blogging on, I saw some stuff already, is will Suter be a fit in New York with the Rangers? They're looking for a second, third pair guy who's a physical defenseman who can still bring the lumber from the back line. It's something they lack to a certain extent other than Trouba, but he would bring him down a good veteran presence. And his advanced metrics is still pretty good, not great. You're not signing him for a long-term deal, but on a 1-2 year deal, is the kind of guy you might explore depending on how young you want to make your defense. But I would say if you're going to go, Tampa's got to be one. And like everybody else, you have to look at Colorado or you have to look at Vegas. I mean, those are the teams that seem to make the most sense based upon Suter likely wanting to go somewhere where he wants to win.
Russ, I just heard, I can't remember if it was Hockey Central or another show I was just listening to saying, hey, Ryan Suter played all those years with Shea Weber in Nashville. How about Ryan Suter going to Montreal on a league minimum deal and play with his old partner again?
Could do that. Could go to Philly with Chuck Fletcher, who gave him all that money.
Right.
I mean, there's options for him. I think he's going to go to Tampa. If he wants to go to a team that he can really win a cup with, he's going to go to Tampa. I mean, if this were the NBA, he'd be going to Tampa. Right.
Look, Zdeno Chara signed the 1-year deal in Washington last year, right? Same type thing where he wanted to go somewhere to win. So there will be no lack of suitors, let's put it that way, for Ryan Suter, no pun intended. I mean, he'll have a lot of interest from a lot of teams who are in the either upper tier or ascending potentially in the next year or two, mainly because presuming he's willing to take a lower dollar deal just to go somewhere to have the opportunity to win, he'll have a lot of opportunities to do so. Parise, he had a stretch this year where he's still pretty good. I do think he's still on the downside of his career. But if you look at him as a third-line guy in the Island, he makes just a lot of sense to go to the Islanders. And especially also where they have cap constraints and they need to find guys on the cheap that can fill roster spots.
Yeah, I think that could happen with the Islanders. But again, come playoff time, will he be healthy? You're not worried about Suter with that. You are worried about Parise and his bad back with that. So and I do think you have to be careful when you're slotting him in. I would personally just slot him in as a fourth liner. So if he's out, I'm not going to miss him. Or guaranteed third line, I can't give it to him. Or
as somebody who you go in with the understanding that, okay, Zach, you're going to play 60 games. We're going to give you rest. We're gonna manage your minutes like Kawhi Leonard in the NBA. And
I'm pretty sure that's what Minnesota did, and it sort of didn't work out.
Now, well, I mean, the interesting thing here with, hell, Tampa Bay. If Suter goes to Tampa Bay, it's going to be on the league minimum contract.
Right, absolutely.
You watch, Tampa Bay will go out and sign Chara and Suter.
No, but I can see Suter fitting in the Savard role. Like, that's perfect role for him. They don't miss a beat. They now then can focus on other things. So I do think that's there's a good chance. It's interesting, though, because I was on the Fletcher press conference. If this would have broken an hour earlier, we could have all asked Chuck Fletcher about it.
Well, yeah, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Switching to the Lightning for a second, a lot of things were broken with the Lightning apparently, including the Stanley Cup, which got dinged up in their celebrations. But
it happens.
It came out today. Julien Brisebois said that Victor Hedman, we knew something was wrong with his knee. He says he was playing with a torn meniscus.
Okay, so it was knee, not hip. I originally was told knee. Then I thought the way he looked on the boat, I was siding towards hip. So my original information that I got for knee was right. Okay.
Yeah, he torn meniscus, suffered in late March, and he's having surgery today. That probably will not keep him out at any time during the season. Although it's
probably a 4-week. It's a 4-week recovery. If they do an excision, it's probably about a 4-week recovery.
Right. The other injuries were Ryan McDonough, who shocked me because Ryan McDonough did not play like he was injured. He played phenomenal. Ryan McDonough with a broken hand, so with Barclay Goodrow.
Didn't realize that. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, not surprised, and I didn't hear any kind of confirmation on Kucherov, but I did. I mean, from
wasn't rumored rib fracture was the rumor.
Rib fracture,
was the rumor, right?
Well, I mean, look, you knew something was off on the cross check, that he did something on that check. So,
although the guy went shirtless for 2 days straight, even with a rib fracture, so
maybe obviously wasn't sticking out the rib fracture. Let's put it that way.
No,
and clearly, how much painkillers and other stuff he may have had in his system, he may not have been feeling it that much either.
Yeah, I mean, Jen, I said yesterday was the first time, and I was giving this live because I was watching the boat parade while we were on the show, and 2 guys were pouring a beer down his throat at the same time. Like, even Ovechkin didn't do that.
Yeah,
but he's clearly enjoying himself. So
he's enjoying the new sponsorship with Bud Light.
Bud Light, yeah, he's sent him sponsorship duties.
They sent him a keg, and I'm just wondering. We're going to be waiting for these Kucherov Vasilevsky commercials, like the Pasternak Dunkin' Donuts, or is it Dunkin' Donuts?
Yeah, Dunkin' Donuts. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So before Jan has to.
One thing. So basically, is look, we've always said the playoffs is a battle of attrition. It always has been. It always will be. Right? There's guys. Look, when the Rangers in 2015 had half the team hurt there, Russ, including McDonough trying to play on a broken foot.
Yeah. That was really sad. At that time, I was sitting very low for that game, and once he took us once around like this little area. And he went back to the bench. I knew he couldn't go, and I had to call somebody because it was like I wasn't gonna get a tweet up quick enough because Wi-Fi wasn't great, and so I had to call somebody and say this series is over because he can't play. Like
they froze the foot, and the foot didn't respond quick enough for him to be able to get out there. But
and that meant everything.
No Zuccarello that series either, right? So if Zuccarello had been healthy in the playoffs, quite likely they would have won. But playoffs always. You find that afterwards, how many guys have played through injuries that normally would sideline them for extensive period of times during the season.
Yeah, there were at least 4 or 5 on that team that had bad injuries. So, yeah.
Now, coming out of the GM's meetings before Jan has to go, some interesting stuff. Obviously, the NHL plans on reverting back to the previous divisions, not to the North Division with all the Canadian teams, which again is an indicator that they believe the border will be freely wide open by October. And in fact, what I'm hearing is the possibility of vaccinated people being able to go into Canada as of July 21st. It may be another month before they do that, but it's sounding like that's going to be the case. The other thing is, via John Shannon, he said plans for next season, fully vaccinated players will be able to travel without protocols and work on and off the ice without being tested for COVID-19 if things continue to improve. Non-vaccinated player rules to be determined. So this is definitely them pushing these players to get vaccinated. If you want to be free and unencumbered, you're going to need to get vaccinated.
But you know what? That's the way it is in baseball, and there's still so many players that aren't. The Mets are not at 85%.
Nope.
The Phillies are not at 85%. So, Mike, that's not going to sway a lot of guys. And so they're going to – if they have this wacky belief that they think the vaccine is going to cause problems for them, then you know what? They're not going to care about what the consequences are. This isn't going to do it.
Plus, the other thing also is, remember, I will say, as we all don't know what's going to be with the variants then, and also don't know necessarily what kind of booster shots we're going to need.
Right.
I will say all this is written in pencil right now with a lot still to be finalized, but not surprising because, as Mel said, baseball's already had this in place, and there's several teams that have not met the protocol percentages yet. So we'll have to see how well the NHL sort of fills this. But with arenas opening up, look, we had more people outside of the Bell Center than did inside the Bell Center, which was kind of crazy. So
yeah, that made no sense to me at all. Like, I get it's outside, but once you're cramming people together,
it's no difference. It's even worse.
Yeah,
it is. It's ridiculous. Shannon did say, though, Health Canada and provincial health authorities will have to sign off. That goes without saying. The one thing he said that was really interesting is don't hold your breath on the Olympics. And Russ, this is the person who was the most optimistic about it was Kevin.
Yeah.
Kevin knows more about the inner workings of what's going on than any of us do. But honestly, the signs are all there that I just don't think they're going to go.
I know. I just said no on Sirius too, because basically I saw that David Pagnotta had put up that there's slow progress. So slow progress might as well be no progress.
Right.
And the fact that we haven't seen the dual schedule that they talked about. Remember, they were like, we were supposed to see that a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. Now we're not going to see it until the draft. So obviously the draft is the drop dead date, and I don't feel good about it at all.
Yeah, I think this, they'll try to push it as far forward as they possibly can.
And this isn't on the NHL or even the players. It's on the IOC because they probably don't want to pay the insurance and whatever else, COVID insurance. And I'm sure that's what they're nickel and diming it over.
But remember, the NHL is not going to release 2 schedules. Teams want to sell tickets for games because they want, to actually get people in the buildings. So they can't say, well, one schedule is going to have games in mid-February and the other one is not. And if that game is not going to be played on February 23rd, it's going to be played. No, people want to plan around the games that they're going to buy. So they're not going to release 2 schedules. So the drop dead date is probably, I would say, at the absolute latest, the day before unrestricted free agency, which would be, say, July 27th.
Yeah, I don't think it'll even go that long. I think we'll know by the draft, because if they don't release the schedule by the draft, they don't have to say a word. I think we'll all know what's going on at that point.
Yeah, Jan, before you leave here, let's get your thoughts on the Duncan Keith move, and then Russ and I will talk about it after you have to leave.
Well, so as I highlighted, right, so interesting that he gets traded the day before Ryan Suter gets bought out. This deal had been rumored for so long. Edmonton, look, Keith is a shell of his former self, but he will bring a veteran presence to that locker room, which I think was probably a large portion of why that move was made. The salary cap was also a restriction here in terms of the kind of amount of money he's made, which also impacted the deal in itself being made. Part of the rationale of Chicago is, one, getting younger, and B, look, they're bringing in Caleb Jones to make a full court press for Seth Jones. I don't think there's any questions about that. That's probably a decent driver associated with making that trade. But from Edmonton's perspective, look, Keith is still a decent defenseman. I don't know if he's an elite defenseman anymore. He gives them probably – but if Larson can come back, right, if Clefbaum is healthy this year –
No, Clefbaum's probably not playing, Jan.
Yeah.
No? Howard said on the call yesterday he does not expect to see him this year.
Okay, I didn't see that. Okay, well, that is a massive loss for that team, because he was stepping into the role as one of their lead defensemen there. So that is a huge loss for them. Nurse took a major step forward. Barry is the guy you wonder whether or not they're going to try to bring back. He wasn't particularly good defensively, but he clearly fit the power play, which to me, Keith can play it, but is no longer really a stalwart.
They're going to run out of money. That's what's going to happen.
What's that?
They're going to run out of money.
Well, that's been the issue for the last several years, right? And even after getting Nugent Hopkins on a quote-unquote team-friendly deal, right, longer term, shorter dollars, right, they're still going to be under a cap crunch, which has been the problem for a long time. So losing Clefbaum to me is a immeasurable loss, because 2 years ago we saw what he was starting to become, and that defense is solely lacking a player of that ilk, and that's the area they really need to remediate. I think Keith will help to a certain extent, but you're going to lose Barry and replace him with Keith. Helps on one end, hurts on the other end.
Clefbaum is not. It's not a wash in terms of money, but Clefbaum's cap hit is. Let's see here. He is
4.167 versus 5.538.
Right, exactly. And Keith, his money, and now his cap hit is 5.5, but his money is 2.1 next year and 1.5 the year after. So essentially, they're only taking $1 million cap hit to bring in Keith, because they're going to put Clefbaum on LTIR, because they're going to be right up against.
Right, but that $1 million cap hit costs them. It's going to cost them. And the other thing about this is, because I was on the call, I wanted to see how Holland was going to explain it. I get why the analytics people say it's a bad trade, because it is. It's one of those deals where we all thought there would be retention on the Chicago side, and there wasn't. Stan Bowman gets a gold star for that, man. The fact that Edmonton took it all, and Keith will play 20-something minutes, but he's not the same player. He is a puck mover. If you want to, in this day and age, if you are going to bring in a guy for 2 years and tell me he's a veteran presence, I'm telling you, go get Anton Strawman. He'd be a lot cheaper than bringing in Duncan Keith. Even though Keith's a better player, I don't want to bring in a guy on the blue line that I have to put in a top 4 spot. And the best thing I could say about him is he's a veteran presence.
I'll tell you, Stan Bowman has made a history the last few years of turning chicken shit into chicken salad. I mean, he brings in Kubalik on he gets Kubalik for, I think, a 5th-round pick from, what was it, LA, I think LA. It was. Yep. Yeah, the Dylan Strome move, really, and this is, if you get Seth Jones out of the fact that you got Caleb Jones for a contract that was sort of crippling your cap, after, I think sort of lucking out that Brent Seabrook was going to be out for the rest of his career because of injury, and you get that money wiped off. Now Chicago's got money to play with. They really do.
Well, until they sign Seth Jones. I think we all think that Seth Jones is not only going there, but will sign there too. I think there's a good likelihood of that now. Never say never, but I just think it's a good likelihood. But this is with Ken Holland. It's hard to look past. Everybody's talking about the Chelios thing back in the day, but Keith is much further along than Chelios, and Chelios was way better because I covered when the Leafs won when the Red Wings won their last cup, and Chelios was really effective. If you've watched games with Duncan Keith in it, yes, he covers minutes. He's not really effective at anything anymore. He can still move the puck a bit, but his offense isn't there. His shot isn't there. So you're not getting him for any power play. So,
Chelios was a freak of nature, Russ. So it's kind of hard to compare to a guy who played to like 44. So
right. And
he also had his minutes limited. Keith is still building a lot of minutes.
Yes.
And that's been part of the problem on that
team. And you don't know if the
wheels
will fall off. Like all of a sudden, this is the year. Like Pete Tessier said something yesterday, like, well, at least it's only 2 years. And my answer to that was, these will be the 2 worst years of Duncan Keith's career. Like it will be.
Yeah, and unless they re-sign, if they re-sign Barry, he's not going to be the point guy in their power play, and he shouldn't be the point guy in their power play. Even if they don't re-sign Barry, it should be Nurse, or it should be
Nurse should be the power play.
Nurse will be the guy. I mean, the one thing I will talk about Klefbom is waiting until March to have the surgery. Clearly, was something I'm not sure. I mean, if the injury was that bad, I can maybe understand rehabbing for a little bit, but to wait all the way to March to rehab it and then wait for surgery seemed to be an extended period of time before making a decision to whether or not to go under the knife.
Yeah, they're asking in the chat room. I think Caleb Jones is an average NHL defenseman, so he's a depth guy. He's fine. Bottom pairing guy, no problem. Like
you know what this is? This is the hockey version of the Milwaukee Bucks signing Giannis's brother
from the Knicks.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
From the Knicks. He was on the Knicks originally.
Yeah. So and it's smart. It's smart for them to do that. From the Edmonton side, I still think Evan Bouchard needs a chance. And if this is going to now cut into the minutes that you're going to give Evan Bouchard because you want a 38-year-old defenseman in there, again, I have to ask Edmonton, what are you doing with your player development there? Because they have a lot of drafted players. We're not seeing much development, right? Can we all agree on that?
Yeah, no, I think there's no question. I mean, they may not bring Larson back, so that may be the way they give Bouchard the minutes to try to let him go. But now you're probably going to lose Barry, and you've lost Larson, and now you've also lost Klefbom for another season, and you've so far replaced him with Keith and maybe with Bouchard. I'm not quite sure. As bad as the Edmonton defense was, I'm not quite sure if you've gotten better in that regard.
And maybe
you probably haven't gotten better. That's true. If they lose all those, even though it wasn't rosy with Larson, I think Holland was playing hardball with him, and I think Larson will go back, actually.
All right, boys. I'm going to jet.
All right. Have fun, Jim.
Thanks, guys.
And Russ, maybe instead of like going hog wild after a guy like Zach Hyman, who, supposedly they're in on, maybe they go after another defenseman. Maybe they go after Savard, because if they're losing if they decide they're not going to go after Barry, and I'd question whether they should go after Barry, because I think they need more of a two-way defenseman instead of an offensive guy. Then maybe they should go out in this market. Maybe they'll try to go after Suter. Maybe they'll try to go after David Savard. But there's the problem with Edmonton. I mean, the magnet is Connor McDavid, but you still have to be in Edmonton. And we know Edmonton has historically had problems attracting free agents to town. Okay. I can't hear you now.
Yeah,
okay. There you go.
It's a slippery slope for Edmonton right now. Like we can't even say for sure I'm going to be better than last year. We can't. And so I do kind of wonder where this is all going for them. I think the last thing they need is a David Savard, because the problem is he's looking for his one big payday. This is it for like how many of those guys can you have in your roster where, yes, it might help you for a year or two. Like if Ken Holland just keeps pushing this, brick up the hill for the next 2 years and they don't win anything, Connor McDavid's going to be gone soon.
Yeah, I mean, but see, the thing is, that's the worry that forces him to do this, because
I know
we keep saying every year, okay, one more year of this, and Connor McDavid's going to say, "Go F yourself, get me the hell out of here." Well, they have to do this and do short-term moves to make sure that they're showing Connor McDavid that they're trying their utmost to have success. So,
you know what Edmonton needs to do? Edmonton needs to search in Europe, get those kinds of guys, look at the college free agents. I mean, again, it's not their fault. I want to stress this. it is not Edmonton's fault that John Marino wanted out. He just didn't want to play for them. They had to trade him last minute to get what they could get. For people blaming Holland on that, that is not Ken Holland's fault. Marino didn't. No, but people online were doing it.
That was before Holland, though. Wasn't
well, even if it was before Holland, they're still blaming the Oilers for that. Yeah, that is not the Oilers' fault.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And hey, that's like blaming Calgary and Carolina for the fact that Adam Fox didn't want to play in either place.
Right. I mean, in the end, it's neither of their fault because he wasn't going to do it. Right. And so you got at that point when you're told literally, I want to say Edmonton had less than 48 hours to trade John Marino before he became a free agent. So, Tim Soderlund, who the Hawks sent to the Oilers in the deal, is he anything or just a throw-in? I don't know much about him. I don't know offhand. I'll looking to see if I have any notes on him, but
okay, I'll just.
He could be another one of the parade of Blackhawks that they bring in because the guy could fill a role because he's played, overseas and doesn't last long. So
okay, here's an indication. 23 years old, 5'9", 163 pounds, drafted in the fourth round at the 2017 draft. That was in Chicago. Last year he played in the second division of the SHL, the S1 league, and had 10 goals in 23 games. Came over, played in the American Hockey League, 5 assists in 23 games.
Don't expect much.
Yeah, this is a throw-in.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The announcement that we expected throughout the Stanley Cup final finally came to fruition today. There's another word that Kevin will like, Russ, fruition.
I know. He like that.
Yes. Dominique Ducharme signs a 3-year deal with the Montreal Canadiens. Not shocking. I know that you're not enthused about this. I'm not particularly. I'm sort of nonplussed about it because I thought there was, and everybody will perceive this as being sour grapes. So if you do that, kiss my butt. But honestly, I look at this and I say they got great performances in the playoffs. They also had a lot of luck, and it was not the plan of Dominique Ducharme to put Kotkaniemi in the series against Toronto, but Evans got hurt. It wasn't his plan to put Cole Caulfield in, but they scored 4 goals in the first 4 games, and then they started playing Caulfield more because they needed the offense. So everything sort of fell into place. He's the beneficiary of that.
Yeah, no question. He ran and signed on the dotted line. So would I if I were him. I don't think he'll make the 3 years. I just don't.
Yeah,
for the reasons you stated and the reasons we stated all along. He's not a bad coach. I just don't think he's a great coach, and I do think he just had players that were willing to pay the price, which was great, and actually, and that's no pun with Carey Price, but also they probably could have won another game in the Stanley Cup if they managed it better. They weren't going to win the Cup, but they probably could have won another game.
Yeah, very possibly. But I mean, you have to give a little bit of credit to Luke Richardson and Alex and Burrows, who were the assistants who took over for. And I almost thought that made Ducharme's accomplishments less impressive because the assistant coaches stepped in and did such a good job at the end of the Vegas series and at the beginning of the Stanley Cup final. It almost said, okay, well, if the assistants are doing such a great job, then how good is Ducharme really doing?
Yeah, and I don't want to take away from Ducharme because he did some good things and he is a decent coach, but I do feel like that team was sort of run by the veterans as much as anything else.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Moving on now, the expansion.
Actually, Funky asked a great question. Okay. Does this mean Berge is getting an extension? I do think it means he's getting one, but I don't think it's long-term. I think it's a couple years.
Well, I think it was Elliot Friedman in his last 31 Thoughts said that Bergevin talked about it in the season-ending media availability, and there were some indicators that he is sort of burned out, that he had, that they've talked to him about it, and he's sort of like, I've got another year, and he's like, so it's possible that he just plays out the year and, maybe takes a break. He's been a GM for a long time in the high pressure of Montreal. I mean, I'm sure he would love to win a Stanley Cup before he retires or takes a step back. Maybe he takes a different role in the organization or something like that. But it didn't sound like it sounded like they were open to it, and he was the one that was sort of holding back. So I don't.
Should we expect a call to Bob Gainey again? Is that what we should expect?
No, they'll try to get Julian Brisebois from Tampa.
Yeah, they had him once. No, but Gainey, he's 67. I could see them bringing him in.
Well, they brought him in the locker room to as a rah-rah thing.
They did. I know people are saying Patrick Waugh. I don't think you could bring Patrick Waugh in as a GM. I just don't.
I'm surprised that we saw Patrick Waugh in the commercial with Mario Tremblay. I thought they were killing each other. It was I think it was the Uber Eats commercial, so they both ordered like tacos or something like that.
Yeah, money talks, Mike.
Yes, and I think Mario beat him 9-1 in the fictitious hockey game. Okay, some news and notes here. We'll hop around a bit and we'll take some questions before we end the show. Eric Johnson officially waives his no movement clause for the expansion draft. As I said earlier, the deadline was 5 p.m. today. So, we heard that was going to likely be a situation, that allows them to protect 3 defensemen. That I think that covers Ryan Graves, Russ. So that allows them. And I don't think that Seattle is going to take Eric Johnson. So that's a good move for a veteran guy to do that. I don't think he's in any danger of being moved.
No, I agree. And the fact that they can keep Ryan Graves is a big deal because he's a really good defenseman. I still don't think we've seen the best out of him yet, and he seems to be getting better every year.
Now, here's an interesting note regarding Nick Leddy. And, we talked about the possibility of him being exposed in the expansion draft. Well, Jonathan Willis is reporting that Leddy is on the trade block.
Yeah, he's been on the trade block.
Right.
I don't think anybody's interested in Nick Leddy anymore because of his salary. The Islanders are not going to retain much, if anything. His skating's still good. His scoring is okay. His defense isn't great. It's okay. Like what is Leddy making? Do you know?
5.55.
Yeah, who wants that?
A team that's desperate for a defenseman, but a team that has cap space, and that's the thing. The teams that are desperate for defensemen that would be interested in Leddy are ones that are one step away, and most of them don't have cap space.
Yeah, so, now will the Islanders pay Seattle Kiefer Bellows to take Nick Leddy? Maybe. Yeah.
According to the report, the quote here is the return might not be as valuable given teams know Lamoriello is eager to shed salary.
The return might not be great.
That's 2 years in a row. You gave away Devin Taves for 2 second-round picks.
Yeah, we have to say one thing about Lou. He does a lot of great things. He motivates. He's been pretty good with things. He's never been a great cap guy as far as looking down the road. He hasn't.
Yeah. No, he hasn't. And you
could point out the issues with Toronto, and we could point out the issues with New Jersey at the end. And that was, these are all things. Yeah, Leddy, 31 points is a little bit of a bounce back year for him. So, he might still be a 40-something point defenseman, but he only had 6 points in the playoffs in 19 games and no goals. Like, he stopped scoring goals. And so nobody could give him that kind of money for the little bit it's not a little bit, for the decent production he gives you in his offenses. His defense is just below average.
And the indicator here is, the Islanders want to open up cap space. Okay, so they're not going to be able to retain, and the only thing that they'd be able to do maybe is arrange something with Francis where they trade Leddy to them and then they retain for 1 year, and that helps them get to the cap floor. But then, as you said, what are they doing that for? They might do that for, and not just Kiefer Bellows. It would have to be, I think it would have to be something more than Kiefer Bellows.
Listen, Kiefer Bellows is a really good prospect.
I'm not saying he's not, but to ask a team to retain salary for you in a deal.
Well, he's a guy they'll plug into their starting lineup. So I think, and Funky's asking what's his age, like 31. It's in that range, but with Leddy, it's not about his age. He has a lot of mileage on him. He does.
I'll just answer this from Flamester because it's the Leaf portion of the show, folks. No, I actually think that they signed Travis Dermott to make him more attractive to Seattle, so Seattle would pick him. I think they have plans for Kerfoot in terms of a trade. I wrote about it yesterday. Kerfoot's contract, they paid most of the salary and signing bonus. It's either signing bonus was July 1, which is the normal time, or it's July 28th when the year begins. But the Leafs are paying basically, I think it's like 1.8 million of his 2.7 in money when the beginning of this year starts. So once that happens, he's a league minimum player with a $3.5 million cap hit. And for a team like Arizona, who the cap doesn't matter, it's the money, and there are other teams like that out there, then Kerfoot would be an attractive get because he's a decent player, and if you're paying him league minimum, you're basically the last 2 years of his deal, you're paying him at 50%. That's the way it works out. So I think that will be attractive to some teams. Okay, this normally probably would have been the lead story on a slow news day, but Pekka Rinne announced his retirement after, let's see, how many seasons? 8, 14, 15 seasons.
That's great.
With the Nashville Predators. Now, again, every time a good to great player retires, is he a Hall of Famer? No, he's not a Hall of Famer, but he's a very good goaltender for a long time. He never won a Stanley Cup, but he's I think he was in the top echelon of goaltenders for most of his career, Russ. So I think it's a great career.
Yeah, I do think it's a great career. He's a guy that used to be so fast post to post, and in the last couple of years he'd been getting slower, and I think that was part of the problem. But very athletic, really a great guy who was sort of like mild-mannered and just did his job and did it really well. One of the best goalies of his era. He's not going to be a Hall of Famer, but he got to the Stanley Cup. He's done a lot of great things in his career that he could be very proud of, and I hold him in high regard. I really do. I feel like he's just had a terrific hockey career. He is their best franchise goalie. His legacy's set. What else could you want other than winning the cup, which didn't happen for him, and it doesn't happen for every goalie. So, yeah, he'll probably get his number retired. All that stuff's coming for him, and well-deserved.
I know that Pete Weber has told the Pekka Rinne story before, but I believe the story was, and I'm just doing this off of recall, because he was an 8th round pick in 2004, and I believe he was the backup on the team. Like, they sent a scout to go see him, and he was the back. They basically drafted him sight unseen. He was the backup for like the one game that the scout went to go see him. So they never really saw him, but it was an 8th round pick. So they just said, and remember, the draft is 7 rounds now, so it's not even an 8th round anymore. So they just picked this goalie from Finland, 258th overall. And
I'll give you the quote. I have it. I asked him about it.
Good.
And what he told me was, he said, "To be honest with you, I wasn't even following the draft that year. I was already 20 years old, and I was 2 years past my draft year. It was a big surprise when I got drafted. My Finnish agent texted me. I was at a big midsummer party. You know about that midsummer stuff?
Yes.
In Finland. And I was with my buddies in a cottage. To be honest with you, I didn't really pay attention," which tells you he was drinking heavily and gets a call that says, "Hey, you're drafted," and he was shocked. So that's a cool thing. Again, I got this from him, like that media day that we were at for the Stanley Cup in Pittsburgh. And it's a great story. And that is just part of the mystique of Pekka Rinne, I think.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. That's a fantastic story. And, now what somebody was saying, mentioned Lundqvist. Funky mentioned Lundqvist.
Yeah.
Lundqvist wasn't a 7th. He was a 4th, wasn't he? Like a 4th?
No, 7th.
He was a 7th round.
But here's the thing, though. Krista Rockstrom, who I interviewed for our book, 100 Ranger Greats, he was tremendous. And I interviewed him for probably a half hour, 45 minutes. He told Glenn Sader and the table, from the first round on, you have to draft this goalie. So he was pounding the table, and they finally took him in the 7th round. They took a guy from RPI named Brandon Snee ahead of Henrik Lundqvist, a goalie. And to this day, the only person I've ever heard say they've seen Brandon Snee play was Joe Yerdon. That's it. Nobody else has ever seen this guy play. So Krister did his best to get – he would have – if it were up to him, he would have drafted Lundqvist in the 1st round. But it wasn't up to him.
Right. Yeah, I could just imagine. Okay, we'll take the guy. Shut up, please.
Right. That's what I think it became.
Wow. Okay, so some other interesting stuff. Jack Eichel was interviewed on a Boston TV station. I think it was over the weekend, and he indicated to a Boston reporter or a TV personality that he would love to play for Boston.
Oh, did he say it would be a wiki cool thing?
Yeah, no, he didn't go that way, but he's wicked smart. No, but the funny thing, Mike Harrington wrote in the Buffalo News today, it says, Eichel may be traded. It may not be this week, but he may be traded. But forget about Boston. He's not going to Boston. They're never just like the Buffalo.
Yeah, they're not doing it.
The Buffalo Sabres will never make a major trade with the Maple Leafs because of the potential blowback in the media and the embarrassment.
Is it possible, and I hope Eklund's listening, that after the expansion draft, that Eichel is part of a three-way deal and he ends up in Boston? That could happen.
I don't know if you can. Okay,
you can do it.
No, you can do it, but based on, I'll say this, based on the competition that is out there for Eichel purportedly, I can't see the Sabres not saying to a GM, I will make this deal with you if you make me a promise that you don't trade him to Boston.
No GM will ever agree to that. Ever.
Well, then he's out. That's what I'm saying. That's what.
But it doesn't work that way, Mike.
Yeah, it does.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't work. No, it doesn't work that way. If he has another GM that gives him his price, they'll make the deal. And if that other GM wants to flip Eichel to Boston because he likes what they're going to give him, that other GM will do the same thing. So you can't. Kevin Adams can't call that shot. He can't.
I don't know. I mean, I would think that he would. I would think that he would try to make a.
Not if he's not getting great. If this guy has the best offer, he is going to take the offer and at that point not look back. That's what's going to happen.
Now, the difficulty for the Sabres regarding the whole Eichel situation, and even Sam Reinhart and Ristolainen, you're protecting players that are likely going to be traded. Mm-hmm. So you're protecting them in the expansion draft because you don't want to lose them for nothing.
Yeah, you're protecting an asset.
But if they do protect them, then they're going to lose other young players. They could lose an Asplund. They could lose a Will Borgen. And there's no way that they can protect all these players. I mean, they're not a very deep team, but they do have some young players that I think are valuable. And by not making these deals, I mean, that may be just the price that they have to pay. But it is a heavy price when you're a rebuilding organization to lose a young player.
It is, but guess what? Them's the breaks.
Yeah. Okay, we'll take some questions in the chat here to finish off the show.
And then we have a post show.
Well, okay. Why don't we do the post show now while we're waiting for people to ask questions?
Okay.
So go ahead.
36 years ago today, I was at JFK Stadium in Philadelphia. I got there at 6:00 in the morning. We drove from Long Island. We stopped at a bagel store. We got a bag of bagels. I think the guy in a car next to us, because we had a little cavalcade, I think he spent $100 at the bagel store, and he just filled up a hefty bag. And every once in a while, we would have bagels just thrown around in the cars, and that's how we survived and went there. Contrary to beliefs of everybody who probably watched the show, I didn't drink until the sun went down because it was a scorching hot day. But I stayed alive with snow cones and with new Coke that had just not new Coke, sorry, Cherry Coke had just been introduced that day. And so we were getting free samples of that and whatever pretzels and other crap. But the biggest thing I felt like at that concert, while everybody talked about the Zeppelin reunion and Mike's talked about it to death as far as, it being underwhelming, the one that probably didn't get enough buzz was the CSNY one, because there was a lot of talk because, again, those guys did not get along and they've never done anything since. So there was a lot of talk that it may happen, but nobody was really sure. And what ended up happening was there was a point in the concert where all of a sudden they started putting out empty chairs on stage, and they put out 4 empty chairs, and I was like, wow, they're actually going to do this. And they did. And they came out and they played like 3 songs. I think if you ask me, Mike, they had to play the Neil Young song first. It's Only Love Can Break Your Heart. Because if they didn't, I don't think Neil Young would have signed on to do it.
Well, I know. Okay, I'm pretty sure they did a reunion tour in like '93 or '92.
Okay, maybe.
So, but yeah,
up to that point, they hadn't been together in a million years.
No, and now obviously it's impossible because David Crosby is pissed off Stills and pissed off Nash and Young because of his comments about about Neil Young's girlfriend Daryl Hannah.
Yeah. But it really was magical because with the chairs like that, it sort of felt like you were in their living room, even though it was 100,000 people. And like, I'm a child of the 60s, right? I have great reverence for them. I may not listen to them all the time, although I have one live concert on my iPod because it's really fantastic. They were a great band, and I heard a lot of them growing up. So it was nice to be able to see them.
Yeah, I won't everybody, especially after the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, it's like now it's being beaten over.
Yeah. We know about that.
If you watch Radio Gaga, and that to me is the highlight of Live Aid with basically Freddie Mercury. It looks like he's reenacting like a rally at like
right, but from Wembley, not from Philly.
Well, that was from Wembley, yeah. But and personally, like you and I both are big Phil Collins fans. The fact that he played at both venues,
it was amazing.
Clapton and Sting as well. To me, in like retrospect, like the one that sort of blows, and I'm not the monstrous U2 fan that I am for other bands, but you watch the performance that U2 did, especially the song, I think it's Exit, where they do the sort of long call and response at the end of it. And in the middle of it, Bono jumps off the stage because a couple women were being crushed by the Wembley crowd, were being crushed against the barrier.
No, that was Philly. They were in Philly.
That was Philly. Okay, they were in Philly. Okay. He jumped down, he grabbed 2 of them, pulled them up into the barrier and then up on stage because they potentially were gonna be crushed to death. And and if you listen to the performance, the band is like playing the same like 2 verses over and over again. He gets up on stage, and honestly, it's great because once he finally does, it was fantastic. So I
didn't see you too, Mike.
No, you were on the bathroom line.
I was. So when we got there, this is funny. When we got there at 6. They gave us a list of events, and they had potential times and bands and what they'd be playing. And so I picked my bathroom time, and I did pick it for U2 because they weren't the biggest band at that point. And so I was in the bathroom because I was deathly afraid of them running out of toilet paper. True story. So I heard it all. I didn't see that part of it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you the most underrated. You want to know the most underrated from Philly? Was George Thorogood. He was fantastic. And he's a local guy, from Delaware Destroyers. He was great.
Yes, and it's funny because George Thorogood, I would say, 15 years later, I had an apartment down near the KeyBank Center in the city of Buffalo, and I moved in around July 4th. And all this ruckus was going on at the marina where we years later would have the media availability for the NHL draft. And I'm like, what the hell is all this noise going on? And it was a George Thorogood concert.
There you go.
Yeah. And so it's like, but the funny thing is that you look back, everybody thinks like, okay, all these big acts. There were some like acts that were like, Paul, the Hooters, some small acts that.
Madonna was. I'll give you a quick Madonna story. When she played a couple of her songs, and then she also came out with the Thompson Twins, and that was really good. Now we had our seats close to the MTV party tent, and so Madonna went in there, and when she came out, who knows what she was doing in that MTV party tent? Because when they showed her on the big screen, her eyes were just crazy, but. As far as the music was really good. But it's not Rockology. I get it. We'll get back to questions.
Yeah, we'll answer some questions. I just wanted to. I was just looking, and I have to say this: one of the only negatives of Live Aid was the audio crapped out for Paul McCartney, who was the closer, I think, in London.
He was.
And he was doing like Let It Be, and it was like
they do have it. They fixed it. I have it on DVD.
Right.
And it's with George Michael and a couple others are with him.
Right. Wham was out there with him.
Yeah, Wham was out there. It was okay. Somebody did say the cars were good. The thing about the cars they were never great in concert. They can never get the sound exactly the same way that they did in studio. So they sort of lacked like energy, but they were good because they were almost exactly like what you heard in the studio. And I just felt like they lacked a little energy.
Here you go.
So good.
The opening act at JFK was Joan Baez.
Yeah, well, that was because that was a homage to
Woodstock.
To Woodstock, that's why.
Right. And they closed with Bob Dylan.
Right, which again, by the time they closed, yeah, I was fully lit. Like, so I don't even remember Bob Dylan, I'll be honest.
Well, Bob Dylan doesn't remember you either, Russ.
Well, that's clear. I told my Bob Dylan story. So, yeah.
Okay, Vepsis asked, are the Leafs able to realistically target potential left wing free agents Saad, Coleman, Goudreau? No, I don't. I think the only way that they're going to be able to add a left wing is via trade, and it would involve Kerfoot. But Kerfoot is a left winger, so it's going to have to be somebody who they would perceive as being better than Kerfoot, or trading Kerfoot to open up the cap space and then make a signing or making a trade. I don't, Saad. He had a pretty good year with Colorado. He
did have a better year than I thought. Absolutely. Yeah,
he probably could turn it into a 2 or 3 year deal someplace. Yeah. And Kevin reported that Goudreau is asking for $4 million, and Coleman's probably asking for $5 million. So they're asking. I don't know.
Goudreau will never get $4 million in any world. He's not getting that. Coleman getting $5 million is even kind of rough. I will say this though, Zach Hyman. The Islanders will probably make a play for him if he's available.
They will, but I think he's going to get – now, okay, if he is interested in winning a Stanley Cup, then
he'll go to the Islanders.
No. Then he either goes to the Islanders or he goes back to Toronto. I mean, no, the jokes, I know, but whatever. Yeah. But if he's interested in making the most money, then it's probably Detroit or Edmonton. And I honestly think it's with Zach, it's going to be, he's made $2.25 million the last 4 years. He's 29 years old. He's got a young family. Eiserman has a habit of building Stanley Cup winners, so they could contend down the line 3-4 years down the road, and he'll have probably a 6-year contract if he goes to Detroit. So I think it's. If he goes to the Islanders, he's not going to make the most money. He's probably going to make the same amount of money he would do staying with the Leafs.
No, but look, they're asking with what cap space for the Islanders. Would it shock you if somehow Lou moves out like Cal Clutterbuck finally, or somebody like that? Something like that is going to happen.
Or Andrew Ladd or something.
Or Andrew Ladd. Something like that will happen.
Okay, Mob Talk Radio. Could you see a situation considering the Penguins signing Henrik Lundqvist come on the cheap? Better start. Well, I mean, there's too many question marks right now about Lundqvist with the heart situation.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to make it a go, but he is still Capitals property, and the Capitals, I think, are going to lose Vanacek. So if he can play, he's probably going to play for the Capitals, because if he's able to play, they would make him the starter at least to start the season and see what he's got. But that is the longest of long shots right now.
Thomas Boyle, do you see Arizona taking on bad contracts to get cap compliant?
No, they don't want to spend money.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'll give the reason that a guy like, and I'm just talking Leaf here, but other contracts like this, the reason that Arizona might be interested in a guy like Kerfoot is because for like this year, $750K salary, $3.5 million cap hit. The cap floor is the cap hit. So they're paying $2.75 million less for a 3.5. They would be interested in a guy like Kerfoot. And I mean, I know that there was like a rumor out there that was completely unsubstantiated involving who was it? Dvorak. I don't know if that's realistic, but like, could Kerfoot be involved in a Connor Garland deal where Connor Garland is going to make $3 or $4 million this year because he's earned it? That's possible. The Leafs have been interested in Garland, rumored to be interested in him for a year. So
They have 8 UFAs, 4 RFAs, and $31 million clear cap space. Like,
and
it's a mess.
And 2 defensemen under contract, and one of them is Ekman Larsson, who they're trying to trade.
It's crazy.
So,
actually 3, because
Soderstrom, yeah.
No, Ilya Lyubushkin is under contract.
I don't count him because he's sort of a 4A player.
I know.
Okay, let's see. Will 85. Would Darnell Nurse, Seth Jones be an upgrade for Morgan Riley? Well, yeah, but Seth Jones is not going to Toronto. And Toronto's not going to trade for him if he's a 1-year guy. And Darnell Nurse is 1 year away from being a UFA, but every indication is he's going to sign with Edmonton. But with anybody, Darnell Nurse is probably an $8 million defenseman.
He's going to be close to that. Like I said, he's related to a McNabb. He's going to make the most money he can. Trust me.
It's his nephew, isn't it? It's Donovan
McNabb. And Uncle Donovan will tell him how he fleeced the Eagles for a lot of money. Now, he was a great player, don't get me wrong, but he made top dollar.
Assuming Tuukka re-signs with Boston, is there a veteran goalie you can see the Bruins targeting in free agency? No. They're going to
can't assume that Tuukka's returning.
Yeah, okay. One, you can't assume that Tuukka's returning, but they got Swayman and Vladar.
Right.
They're not going to sign another goal. What
they might sign, yes. I do think teams will have like that third goalie, and they might sign a veteran to a 1-year deal, somebody who just needs, to stay in the game, even if it's like Devin Dubnyk, somebody like that, because they want to sign a 1-year deal. If Tuukka has a bad time with his rehab, can I see him saying, that's it, I'm not coming back? Yes. I also could see him coming back mid-season. So if that's the case, they're not signing anybody, and they're going with the 2 guys they have.
Right. Okay, here's where social media drives me nuts. And I think Funky is joking here when he says, and his dad. He means Joe Thornton.
Yes.
So Austin Matthews, and I wrote about this as a little blurb today on my blog. So Austin Matthews and Joe Thornton were at the UFC, the Conor McGregor fight on Saturday. Bieber was there, and I can't remember.
But you left the punchline out, Mike.
What?
The punchline was, with Matthews and Joe Thornton there, 2 Leafs. That's why McGregor didn't get past the first round.
Ah, yeah. Okay, that was funny. And Kendall Jenner was there. Who cares?
Yeah.
But
Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson, who saluted Trump. I mean, my God. But okay, but no. The reason I bring this up is because, like, Leaf fans are like, does this mean they're going to bring back Joe Thornton? Because Austin Matthews and Joe Thornton are buddy. Okay, I'm not totally opposed to them bringing back Joe Thornton, but it would be under the agreement that, hey, Joe, you're the 13th forward. You're going to play 40, 45 games. You're not going to play every game. It's not like Patrick Marleau where you have a consecutive game streak. You're older. We want you around because you're a good guy in the locker room, but you're not going to play every day. Now, in that case, I don't think Joe Thornton's coming back. I think he'd want to be part of the team and playing all the time, even if he is 42 years old. So
I don't think anybody's signing him. Honestly, I just don't.
Yeah. So, but yes, it was funny. Mel Gibson is a lunatic. Yeah, there you go. I still like some of his movies though, but
that's fine. You're allowed to. It's just the person is different.
Oh yeah, of course. Let's see here. Any more questions in the chat? Yes, Nurse will get $8 million. And somebody in the chat overestimating how many people would even want to play in Toronto. No, I think a lot of players do want to play in Toronto. It's just a question of whether Toronto can pay them.
Right.
So, I mean, that's the problem.
I did want to mention a couple of things quick here, Mike.
Talk about the Flyers situation.
Yeah, I was in the Fletcher press conference, and people can go to sportsology.com and read my article. But what he said about the expansion draft was interesting because his answer to Minnesota, like why he did what he did, was he said, look, everything was different. The team was different. And he said that now with the pro scouts in town for the Flyers, he felt like he has more time to prepare this time than he did last time. And I think that's interesting. So, he may have learned a thing or two, but he also said that, he's been busy. He's spoken to Francis a few times. He's willing to give the list. He has the list done, and they're going to hand in the list. But, he's basically also saying, hey, if I get a call after Ron gets the list and he wants to talk about things, I'll talk about things. And I think that was his Hail Mary to sort of see if Ron will let him make a deal to get Voracek or JVR off the payroll, because I don't think Francis will pick either one of them. I mean, he won't pick Voracek. I don't think he'd even pick JVR. So I think that was his way of sort of still doing that and getting that going. And then as far as the draft, you can read about what I wrote on the in the article, but I can tell you I don't think the Flyers would be drafting a goalie in the first round. I think that would be a big mistake.
Yeah, and stay tuned for those who listen to Off the Post Radio, because we're going to have some draft stuff for you before the draft. We'll stay tuned for that.
We're going to open up some Upper Deck product, and we're going to do a few things.
Yeah. So, all right, great show. We will be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. Who knows what kind of news will happen? God, I mean, we didn't expect this.
We were shocked today.
Yeah. For the departed Jan Levine, partying in Vegas, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Lagello. Thank you for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just